prime thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
All right, welcome back to the Just Win podcast. We are live after the Raiders lost to the Buccaneers 28-13. I'm Ted Wynn. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafer, who made the trip out to Tampa Bay. He's currently in the press box right now, just letting this game wash over him a little bit and and battling with the vacuum lady in the background. But it's all good. The Raiders, it's not all good. They lost another game, but I mean, it's another. They are currently the number one team right now in the draft order. The Giants had an opportunity to win a game at the end, but Tashan Reed's boy let the Raider Nation down. Drew Lock had an opportunity to win the game at the end, but couldn't do it. Two opportunities, but we'll talk about that later. Let's talk about the Raiders right now. Aidan O'Connell looks like he might be out for the season, so it might be Desmond Ridder time. Any injury updates on him?
Yeah, I talked to Antonio after the game. He said does not look good, was all he would say. But yeah, he was carted off the field on a stretcher and has a knee injury. So I do believe the worst is probably, and he's going to be out for the year. I know Desmond Ridder is very excited about playing next week against his former team, the Falcons, on Monday Night Football. I'm not sure the rest of Raider fans are as excited, but it is what it is. They've lost 9 in a row. And for fans who want that high draft pick, I guess they're happy. But the players are definitely not happy. They're definitely, they're still playing hard. I mean, they had a chance today. They actually had a chance to go ahead in the third quarter after they had an awful start. But they just can't ever put things together when it matters, so they lost again.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird play when Aiden got hurt. Earlier in the third quarter, it looked like he hurt his ankle, and early in the period, and he was limping a lot. But he got pushed in the back after he threw and fell over, and it didn't seem like first glance, it didn't seem like a play where you would think an air cast would come out, but obviously he suffered a significant injury. It was his left leg that got put in the cast, and he needed to be carted off. And tough blow for him. I mean, it's been a frustrating year, I'm sure. Losing the battle in training camp to Gardner Minshew, and then once he was named a starter, breaking his thumb, and then pretty much as soon as he comes back and is coming off of the best game of his career, he suffers probably a season-ending knee injury. So he probably he's a very competitive guy. I wonders what could have been this year if he had better injury luck and whatnot. But it looks like the Raiders are going to be on to their third starting quarterback this season. I mean, Gardner Minshew obviously he's out for the year with a broken collarbone. Now Aiden most likely is going to be out, and they're left with Desmond Ridder, or I guess they can go to the practice squad and call up Carter Bradley. But you would think that Desmond Ridder would be the choice over him to go ahead and start against his former team next week on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, and even before the injury, he just wasn't playing very well. Like I think maybe his head got a little too big from the big game against the Chiefs, and he was just trying to do too much. I mean, it wasn't all on him. Like the offensive line wasn't. We talked about kind of the young offensive line against this Todd Bowles scheme and being able to sort out those pressures. And early on, they definitely weren't doing a good job of being able to protect. The interception to Brock Bowers when he was targeting Brock Bowers, he was expecting Brock Bowers to work across the man, and he threw the ball before the break, and Brock Bowers ended up just stopping because he got cut off. And something also that I found strange was Brock Bowers' playing time. It seemed like it was very sporadic. He was going in and out of the lineup, especially on third down. There was a few third downs where he wasn't in a game. Was there a reason for that?
No, I think they're trying to get him going. I think they definitely trouble with the scheme. I think the Bucs did a good job against him as far as confusing him up. And I think they're trying to find different things that work if he was off the field. But clearly towards the end, he had some catches toward the end. I just think, that one great Spider-Man grab. But yeah, obviously he wasn't as big a factor as they would have liked, but he still set the record for most catches by a rookie tight end. So it's made some history today. But yeah, I don't think he was injured or anything. I just think it was the case where they're trying to find something that worked.
Yeah, I mean, he still played 55 snaps out of 64, so he was on the field for the vast majority of the game. They did have some situations where it was weird, where he wasn't out there, like that that 3rd and 2 that they had. I forget what quarter it was, but they did like a quarterback sneak with Aiden O'Connell on 3rd and 2 for some reason and took Brock Bowers off the field. So there were a couple moments where I guess they chose to give him a breather that seemed to be a little bit curious, but it didn't seem like any larger reason or anything like that. But I mean, we've talked about it before. They've had these moments where they go these long stretches without getting him the ball. I don't think he got his first target until like halfway through the 2nd quarter, and teams are definitely preparing for him in a different way now. Giving him extra safety help and double teaming him and whatnot. So it's more difficult to give him the ball than it was likely earlier on in the season when he wasn't as much of a known commodity. But you got to find a way to get your best players the ball, and the season's lost obviously, and it is what it is. But when it comes to the offense trying to be successful moving forward, they got to find a way to work him in more consistently.
From the O'Connell injury, the Raiders thought it was a late hit. They're gonna, like last week, they'll send a video to the league and ask for what happened, but they were pretty mad it wasn't called a late hit, and that would have been a big call because at that point, we're still down 14-10, and who knows what they would have done. But I guess at that point they're still in the game, but they thought that was a bad missed call by the officials.
Yeah, it was most definitely a late hit. He threw the ball, and well after he threw the ball, he got pushed from behind. Yeah, and with the way the quarterbacks been protected, I was definitely surprised that that wasn't called, especially with the back judge right there to see it. But like you guys said, it's an unfortunate year for Aiden O'Connell, and maybe the last chance, real shot he gets at being a starter in this league. I mean, it's kind of hard if the Raiders draft a quarterback, which it seems like they will. It's hard to imagine seeing him back out there as a starter unless there's an injury at any point. So, stinks for Aiden. Um, but one player that definitely has taken advantage of his opportunities is Sincere McCormick. And he was awesome today. I mean, the Bucks have a very good run defense. Their secondary is leaky, but their run defense is very good. But he broke so many tackles today, and just his ability to gain yards after contact was huge. I mean, there was 1 3rd and 1 where Levante David, who is still a pretty good tackler at his age, had him dead to rights, and he juked him and got the yardage. So I mean, he looks like a really good back and a good find for this Raiders team.
Place in a better place. You wonder what happened. It took so long. Why finally getting the shot earlier? They had so many trouble, so many issues running the ball. But yeah, he's got a nice little shake and bake. He's got his feet are always moving. Got some power to him. I think it makes the first guy miss more often than not. And today he kind of started off a little bit slow, but he got going as the game went on. I talked to him after the game. He was saying that he likes that. He's kind of like your. Most backs will say this: the more you give them the ball, the better they're going to be. They get in the rhythm. They kind of feel like their juices are going. So he feels like he can handle more, and they'll give him more going forward. So I think, in my mind, I think Madison's probably ready to go. I mean, and they say he's still hurt, maybe, but I think they just kind of decided to go with the young guy. So I think Madison's kind of been eased out a little bit. So I think it's Sincere show the rest of the way.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, he's clearly their best back this season. There's no reason to really go to anyone else minus short of injury, and I mean, he's really taking advantage of the opportunity, like Ted said, and he's still only 24 years old. And looking ahead to next year, I mean, he's still under contract and under a rookie deal, so be a cheap option. They should still explore their options to be add some depth in that running back room for sure. But I think he's shown himself to be a guy that should probably be part of their plans moving forward. And we'll see how these final four games go. You would think that with not only Minshew but O'Connell being out now, that they would probably lean into the run game even more than they have been already the last couple of weeks with him kind of giving the run game some life. So he should get plenty of reps down the stretch here to continue to show what he's about. But yeah, I thought he played at a pretty high level against the Bucks, and he got the most carries that he's had so far in his career and took advantage of it.
Yeah, he finished with 15 carries for 78 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, and a lot of those were hard-earned yards. They weren't easy. He was dealing with guys in the backfield, breaking tackles, and who finished second in rushing yards today? Aiden O'Connell, 6 yards rushing. He got one first down with his legs, and it seemed like it took 10 seconds for him to run 4 yards,
Yeah,
but he got there, and
yeah.
he might have hurt himself on a play, but it was a hard earned first down.
Ladies doing some serious vacuuming. I apologize for the background noise.
Yeah, he doesn't need to run too often. That was tough to watch. But yeah, I mean, keep feeding Sincere. I thought that it's kind of unfortunate how it turned out, but on that 10-minute drive that they had to start the third quarter, I mean, they were really feeding the ball to Sincere, whether it was handoffs or throwing him short passes, and he was making the most of it. And the drive went up in flames because O'Connell threw that pretty bad pass that was targeting Brock Bowers and got picked off, so they ended up getting nothing out of a 10-minute drive, which pretty insane. But it was just that type of day, and it's been that type of season for the Raiders offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a running back rich draft. A lot of good running backs in the draft, but I think hopefully with the way McCormick is playing, that it takes the temptation away from drafting a running back in the first 3 rounds for the Raiders, away from Tom Telesco, and they can focus
Mm,
on other positions.
uh,
But they
yeah,
could
I mean,
find.
I don't know if first 3 rounds is necessary, but I mean, I mean, because we have to put things in perspective. Like Zamir White was averaging like 130 yards per game the last 4 games last season, and Sincere hasn't been quite doing that. And we see how this season turned out for Zamir White. So I mean, it's been a good, McTormin's definitely been playing well, and it's a good moment. But I definitely think it's still a position where they should explore their options for sure, whether that's free agency or the draft. And I think taking a running back in the third round or something like that is fine. I think this year has been a good one for showing us that it's a position of value, and they matter. Whether it's Josh Jacobs balling out with the Packers or Derrick Henry with the Ravens or Saquon Barkley with the Eagles, I think people have gone a little bit too far with the running back stuff. But
I will say someone had a good point. I forgot what was I think it's on Twitter, but all three of those backs, like if Jacobs is still on the Raiders, Henry's still on the Titans, Barkley's still on the Giants, those teams still stink. So I mean, I don't know if those guys would make a huge difference if they're on the same teams this year. But it is nicer on the better teams than they're for showing off. But yeah, I wouldn't say they'd make a huge difference if they were still on their old teams. But I'm a big running back guy, so running backs definitely matter.
yeah, I mean, like, those teams suck. So, like, there's only so many players that are going to make that much of a difference. But I don't give them a pass because, like, oh, we suck. So the running back wouldn't be good here. Like, oh, it's your fault. Be better.
Right,
But they try to pass off the blame on the running backs. Like, oh, he's going to run out. That's why we don't want to pay him. Like,
right.
nah, your team shit. So, I mean, I think the running backs get a bad rap.
I agree. I agree.
I mean, to me, a good running back or one that you would have to pay is a good cherry on top because, yeah, you have every position set. You have a good offensive line. It makes sense to pay a running back if you have the cap space. But if you are a bad team, then I just don't think you should put high amount of capital into the running back position. But I mean, that's why finding a guy like Sincere McCormick is good for the Raiders because I think you could go into next season with him as a starter. Obviously, you want to upgrade that position, get some good backups and whatnot. But like, you don't have to invest high capital into it because you found a guy like McCormick that I think could function this offense and potentially could be a very good back. We'll see how it continues to play. But what the defensive side of the ball, I thought they after they gave up 14 points, they played hard. I mean, this is a good Buccaneers offense, and they pretty much stuffed them for most of the game up until the end. After that kind of disastrous start.
I think the Bucks clearly saw something on film because they won the toss and they asked for the ball first and they marched down the field twice before he knew what was going on. It was 14-0. So I think they might have saw something in the pressures or the blocking schemes they liked. And a couple players mentioned it on defense that they made some adjustments. I think they changed their coverage a little bit, changed how they're rushing. But clearly, the first 2 drives, they were definitely Bucks knew what they wanted to do. So good credit to Patrick Graham for making some adjustments. The players responded, instead of winning the battle of the trenches, they made some takeaways, like 3 takeaways. They only had 5 come into the game, so 3 is a huge number. The first fumble recovery of the year, which is there are balloons and trumpets going off, was a pretty special moment here. So yeah, I mean the defense definitely played well for a while, and they definitely ran out of gas late, but they kept the team in the game for the second and third quarters.
The interior rush was really good today, and that's what really got to Mayfield and bothered him, I think. And I saw Tyree Wilson had a good pressure. He got held on one. I think it was the Baker Mayfield interception that he got the pressure on, or it might have been incomplete on third down. But I saw him get a couple pressures. I have to watch the film to really judge what kind of game he had. But the interior pressure, whether it was Max Crosby on stunts or whatnot, I think was a huge deal in this game. Trayvon Morig had a couple big tackles in this game as well. Jack Jones had that big interception in the end zone. Yeah, so credit to them. I mean, no matter what, these guys are playing hard and they're leaving it on the field, and that's not easy to do when you're losing and on the losing streak they're on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think at some point they had stopped the Bucks 7 times or 6 times in a row. They forced 3 turnovers there in the second quarter, and they gave the offense every chance in the world to not only get back in this one, but to take control of this one. And they dropped the ball. And I know that's been a familiar story for this Raiders defense the last 3 seasons pretty much, and they've been really rocked by injuries this year, and so it's kind of hard to judge them for them not living up to expectations this year, but. They had guys making plays all over the place against what's been one of the better offenses in the league the whole year, and so I think you got to give the defense a lot of credit. Not just for this one, but the last couple weeks. I thought they played pretty good against the Chiefs as well on Black Friday. So um, can't say these guys are quitting. I know that's a low bar, and you would hope that every team in the league is giving the full effort, but we don't always see that. I think we saw that at times last year under Josh McDaniels where that waned, and that hasn't been an issue, and that's probably really the only thing that Antonio Pearson and the coaching staff can hang their hat on right now is keeping, the effort going.
Yeah, I mean, this could have very easily gotten out of hand if they didn't kind of knuckle up and start playing the way that they wanted to play. So good job on them. And another issue that we have to talk about because it's come up again is Antonio Pierce's game management. Another game where he's made bad decisions, and it's cost the Raiders. And you could roll your eyes as much as you want, because yeah, we get it. The Raiders aren't really trying. I mean, they want to win these games, but winning is not really the great thing for them. But again, if Antonio Pierce is going to be your coach, you want to see improvement in these areas. And another game we're just not seeing that improvement. Starts with that terrible challenge call on a Trey Tucker incompletion when he couldn't get 2 feet in. And yeah, Raider fans are kind of funny because they're sending screenshots where it looks like his foot is inbounds from the top angle, but when you watch the video, it's clearly not even close. And challenged that call, lost a timeout there, and these timeouts are valuable because they needed that timeout. Then the half, they didn't have it.
Yeah, I mean that's clearly not his strong suit is this in-game decision making thing, and we asked about him earlier this week about it. What's his process for that? And he, game management expert Matt Sheldon and Marvin Lewis, who's an assistant head coach. He says they meet every week about it, but when it's one thing to have a plan and theorize what you would do, but when there's these split second decisions that you have to make in game, when the pressure is on, it's always another level to pulling that off, and that's been an area where he's consistently dropped the ball, even dating back to last year when he was the interim head coach. And like we've said a few times, like if you're not calling plays, and you're going to be that CEO type of head coach, like you have to be better in those areas, and we just haven't really seen progress. Maybe they lose the game anyway, even if he does get those situations right. But you can't have those things keep happening on a week to week basis.
They needed a timeout at the end of the half because they had an opportunity to get the ball back. They forced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers into a fourth down decision they had to make after the 2-minute warning. Mayfield completed on a 3rd and 19. He completed a 15-yard pass to Mike Evans. So it was 4th and 4, and right there, you should take a timeout. Take a timeout. It's 4th and 4. Time is not really an issue for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if they decide they want to drive the ball. So time is the issue for you if you want to keep the ball. You get a chance to get the ball and have time to potentially put a drive together. But the Buccaneers tricked Antonio Pierce basically into not calling timeout because they rushed up onto the ball and they got under center and they just waited and waited and waited until they took as much time off the clock as possible. They called a timeout and then they decided to go for it on 4th and 4. And then Antonio Pierce burns a timeout after that, um, which just doesn't make sense. And then the Raiders get the ball back on an interception. There's 25 seconds left. I mean, it'd be really nice to have multiple timeouts. They still had a timeout there. They're backed up in their own territory at the 16-yard line, but we've seen coaches be much more aggressive. At least get a try a drive starter. At least try to run the ball or maybe throw a screen to see if you could get some yards. But instead, they just threw the ball with the timeout in their pocket before halftime. So just conservative play calling and just mismanagement at the end of the half. Again from Antonio Pierce. And oh,
He
go
has to
ahead,
get
Vic.
better. I was going to say, yeah, I agree with you guys. He has to get better at it for sure. But right now, there's probably some more pressing issues. But yeah, definitely not a strength of his at this point.
Yeah, and another issue, another mistake was um, the Raiders are trying to get the ball back in a 2 minute drill, and Baker Mayfield completes a pass, and before the 2 minute warning, you have a choice to either let the clock run out to the 2 minute warning or call one of your timeouts. But the problem is, if you call a timeout right before the 2 minute warning in that 2:07 to 2 minute range, you open yourself up to a pass because the offense knows that they have the 2 minute warning to deal with anyways. So it's not a run. So they have a run or pass option, but he calls the timeout right before the 2 minute warning. So the Buccaneers were happily able to pass the ball in that situation, and they got the screen for a touchdown. Just another game management issue. Like you have a game management expert, like you know these things have to be talked about and they have to be executed on the field, and they just aren't right now.
I agree with you 100%. But 2-11 to me, I mean, these issues again.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, yeah, they got a lot of problems for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, tank update: the Raiders and Giants are the only two-win teams left in the NFL. The Raiders have the first pick because of strength of schedule. Um, but that could change obviously depending on the last 4 games of the season. The Giants played the Saints today. Derek Carr leaves the game. The Giants actually have an opportunity to tie the game at the end, but they get a field goal blocked. I'm sure Raider fans were watching and cheering for the Giants to maybe make that field goal and then go into overtime and possibly win that game. But yeah, the Giants lost. But the Raiders are, a lot of bad news today. But the Raiders currently have the number 1 pick, so that's something to celebrate, right?
Yeah, I mean, shit, you ain't making the playoffs. So what's the advantage of ending up with a worse pick, right? I mean, this team needs a lot of help. Even if they don't, we think they're going to draft a quarterback, but even if they don't, having the number 1 overall pick and be able to get whoever you consider to be the best player in the draft is obviously a huge advantage. And so, these guys clearly are still trying to win. You know, I know we throw the word tanking around, but if they were tanking, the defense doesn't get 6 stops in a row and they aren't in this game to the very end of it. But when it comes to the future of the franchise, what's best for them is losing every game the rest of the season and giving themselves the best chance of having a top pick. So, I think for whoever is comprising the regime when it comes to next season, that'll jumpstart their effort to kind of turn this thing around.
I got a premise for you guys. So, like, I mean, we talked before about this. I mean, I thought Antonio needed 2 wins the rest of the way to kind of make sure he's back next year. And does today's injury to O'Connell kind of is it actually good for Pierce? Does it actually take away the need to win 2 games? At this point, these 4 games don't really matter anymore. Like you have so many injuries. You lost 2 quarterbacks, 4 starters on defense, and Devontae Adams, took off. So at this point, does this injury now make it okay where you can't lose the rest of your games and Pierce is back next year?
Mm,
Eh, I don't
I
know. I
see.
don't think it makes that much of a difference, really. Like I think this losing streak obviously started long before Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew got injured, even. And so this season has been lost for quite some time. And quarterback or not, like a lot of these in-game decisions and game management issues that AP has had, we haven't seen growth in that area. And that was, I remember this time last year when I talked to Mark Davis at the owners' meetings in Dallas about, why he got rid of McDaniels. Like one of his biggest things was timeout usage and game management. Like he
oh,
said, it was
really?
driving him
Oh,
crazy.
that's
Said it
interesting.
was driving him crazy when he was, watching the games. And so I can't imagine he's enjoying what he's seeing right now. And so I don't think AOC going down is gonna help him skate when it comes to that. So If it is 2 more wins that he needs to keep his job, I think he still probably needs those 2 wins.
We need to get Mark Davis to be the game management coach on the headsets. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe he can help Antonio Pierce out.
that's what you want. No, you don't want that.
Yeah, maybe it's more impressive, or it builds his case if he could win the game with Desmond Ritter, the third string quarterback, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's gonna be tough, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just funny that the Raiders preach turnovers so much, but all three of their quarterbacks have been turnover machines. I mean, Desmond Ritter's been a turnover machine all his career. Aiden O'Connell was lucky not to have more turnovers in this game. A couple dropped interceptions just because the ball touched the ground on the way down. And we know what happened with Gardner Minshew. So yeah, that's rough. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. It's been a hard season, but the Raiders have the #1 pick. But we will talk to you guys again on Friday. Break down some Desmond Ritter tape. Excited stuff.
Really? Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
exciting. I can't wait for that one. All right, cool.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
All right, y'all.
Hasta la vista. The vacuum lady took off, so she says bye also. But take care.